think so. Hi, Paul. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad. Should we go with interesting times?
Yeah, I think interesting is probably a very suitable word for these crazy, crazy days.
Yeah. So what's been happening since lockdown happened from your point of view? I know obviously you would have had lots of events planned at Hillside and having to deal with kind of what happens next for those clients.
Yeah, so it's been pretty interesting because there's the two sides of the business. There's the brewery side of the business where we sell to pubs, shops, restaurants, delis, garden centres, and obviously the majority of those are now shut. And then the other side, which is the events, so weddings, conferences, team building, activities, and obviously that's all off at the moment. So we've been trying to really navigate and figure out where we go next and how we kind of plan for the future.
And so did you have a lot of events to kind of reschedule? And is that what you've been doing, rescheduling? Are people willing to do that rather than actually cancelling?
Yeah, I think there's been a mixed review. So for weddings, I think people are unsurprisingly still planning on getting married.
Nice.
Well, depending on how the self-isolation goes together. But yeah, on the whole, they seem to just want to postpone it and still have, because we've got all the wedding plans in, it's pretty simple, just selecting a new date. Some of them found there's extra pressures with making sure that those dates are available for, well, whether they've just postponed it a year with kind of churches and caterers, because obviously next year a lot of that's already booked. And now a lot of those people are trying to find that they're trying to fit 2 years worth of work into 1 year. So that's positives for some and negatives for others. Whereas some things like team building, we're seeing mixed bag really. Some people are quite happy to postpone and try and book in for team building or rebuilding after people have been furloughed and working from home. And other people are just taking a more wary approach and saying they're just going to cancel it for the rest of the year because they don't want to risk any kind of outbreak at work and loss of business. So it's really kind of challenging to kind of look at the future and figure out what that looks like. And I think even when lockdown is removed and events and that start to be opened up again, trying to figure out where people's mindset will be of, I imagine there's probably going to be a split of people who think, great, I can get out, I want to go down the pub, I want to make the most of kind of my life, I've really addressed what's important to me, I want to go and see family, have beers with them, go to make the most of stuff. And those people who've been kind of on the more wary side of thinking, well, actually, COVID-19 is still around and there is still risk of getting it and I don't want to get it. And even if they think they'd be all right for getting it, it's not necessarily even that's the issue. It's the risk of passing it on to other people they care about that they will be seeing out of lockdown. So trying to figure out what the future looks like is really, really challenging.
Sure. And I think, there's lots of schools of thought out there, isn't there, around both the private event side of things. As you say, I think with weddings, people will happily rebook, and there may be a pent-up demand for family gatherings, but corporates potentially being slightly more cautious because they've got to consider how their colleagues will feel about being together. Of the events that you've had to cancel, is there anything that you were particularly looking forward to hosting up at Hillside?
Yeah, there's been, I always love doing the weddings because the one thing with the wedding, everyone's there to have a really good time. It's a celebration of kind of two people's lives together and a really exciting kind of next step for them. So they're always good fun. But the ones I personally really enjoy are our car shows, the car meets. And they're meant to have kind of started this month. So people turn up with their car. This year we've got our chosen charity is Hope for Tomorrow, who do mobile cancer care units. So donations off every single entry get donated to them. And so we've had all sorts. You have Mustangs, classic American hot rods. We even had a Back to the Future car.
Excellent.
A real mixed bag from old classics to new to just wacky and bizarre, and people can come with their family and just have a look around. So I really like them. I mean, generally, most of the events are quite fun. We try and host different things like Great British Breakfast. So we're only open for about 4 hours, but beer or bubbles, Prosecco and breakfast to start your day is pretty good. So yeah, I mean, generally I like all the events, but probably the two that stand out for me are the car shows and probably the big breakfast.
Okay. Yeah, because you run your own events as well, don't you, as well as hosting events for others. So are you hoping to be able to run any of your own events in the kind of summer months? I guess we're all waiting right now for the big announcement on Sunday. It is now, isn't it? We were hoping it was going to be Thursday, but it's now Sunday.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, well, how can we run these events to kind of cater to those people who do want to get out, and to also cater to those people who probably do want to get out but are a bit anxious about the risks involved. So how we safeguard the people when they're at an event, and also how we safeguard any of our team who are working at that event. So one of the things I think I'd really like to do when the lockdown's lifted is, whilst the weather's still nice, maybe doing some kind of garden party where people can come, and because we're on a 40-acre farm, if the weather's nice, bring a picnic blanket, maybe have, even if it's just music on a Spotify playlist, because you don't know how busy it's going to be, you don't want to spend a load of money on a band, but even if it's just a nice relaxed day out, come, bring your dog, walk around the grounds, sit with your family, enjoy a couple of drinks, something like that could work. I'm really hoping that we've got an event in a few months' time. It's an outdoor theatre. IKP Productions are absolutely hilarious. They're doing The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. They've done The Three Musketeers and King Arthur before. It's quite Blackadder-like, really, really funny. You can bring yeah, they're really good. Bring your own blanket, picnic, drinks from the bar. So I'm hoping that'll go along, just because then people can choose where they sit, they can have their own social distancing, and it's just great fun for the whole family. Bonfire night, I'm hoping will be the same. That's always a sellout event and really, really good. And really, I would like to fulfill the weddings that we've got booked in as soon as we can, because I think that's going to be the most important to those couples, that they haven't planned a wedding just to then put it off for another year or however long they anticipate it being. So yeah, just figuring out what that looks like though.
So have you started to, obviously you've mentioned social distancing a couple of times there, have you started to think about how events can work within the space? You've got a fabulously big space up at Hillside, both inside and outside. So have you started to think about kind of how you can manage events with social distancing, what measures you need to put into place?
Yeah, so I think partly it's dependent on what is issued when the government say that events are able to happen, because they might put limitations on numbers. The social distancing side of things is going to be difficult in a brewery, say at a wedding, when people haven't seen, I don't know, their cousin Sam for 6 months and they've had a couple of beers. It's going to be pretty hard for us. In fact, it's going to be impossible for us to even try and entertain the thought of policing social distancing, so the onus is going to be on the people who enter it. More our side of things is figuring out how we can maintain a safe distance when people are ordering drinks, when we're serving food, how the policies that we have in place in terms of hand sanitizing, general health and well-being of our team when they're in, and that kind of side of it. So we've looked at things like screens up on the bar, but as you can imagine, screens with all this kind of stuff kicking off are horrendously expensive, like hundreds of pounds. We've got a 10-metre bar, so the space between where they serve the drinks from and where the customer is, you're looking at about 2 metres anyway, but taking payment and things like that obviously reduces it. So whether we then shift onto all contactless payments and stuff like that is potentially something we can look at.
Yeah, contactless payments do seem to be kind of the way to go. Wherever you are at the moment, people just are not interested in handling cash, which is understandable. And I guess you could look at things like table service only when it comes to drinks, which enables your staff to be in control of kind of how close they are to people. But there's so much to think about and so much that's still up in the air. You know, I don't think for any of us we feel that it's as easy as, well, lockdown's over, we can all go out again. Certainly not when it comes to the events and hospitality industry. I think we'll all be kind of learning from each other, I guess, as we progress. Have you had conversations with any other event venues to kind of find out what they're doing? Is that part of kind of your thought process?
Yeah, so I've spoken to a few. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about what that'll look like. One restaurant in particular who's near me, incredible place, number 3 restaurant in Ross and Wye. And part of its selling point is it's small, intimate, great foods, great atmosphere, cocktails, food and everything. But he was saying that if he has to have 2 meters apart social distancing per kind of household, he's probably only be able to fit 5 or 6 tables in there. So with all the overheads and all the rest of it, it's going to be a real challenge in how they navigate that. So there's people in hotels, so that hotels have a little bit more flexibility in the fact that they can do room service. So if people want to go somewhere, they can isolate in that room as long as that's all been sanitized, and they can eat their dinner in there. They can eat their breakfast in there, and there are ways around it. I mean, I think a lot of it with these events are going to come down to the customer or guest of the event as to how they feel. I posted on LinkedIn, excuse me, a video of me at our event space, and one gentleman was saying he's evaluated the risk from his personal perspective, and he doesn't want to put his life on hold. He wants to get out there and make the most of it, regardless of the pandemic. And when obviously lockdowns lifted, he implied that he would be making the most of that. And then another person said that they were looking at who to kind of target, because there are some people that there will be a real need for kind of rebuilding that team. And that kind of need for making use of the space, that people don't feel they're putting themselves at high risk whilst still being able to give back and build the team and invest in people. So I don't know, it'd be really interesting to see where it goes and whether there's potential vaccine, or how the COVID pandemic is kind of managed by the government, and what the levels kind of, whether they go up, down, whether there's a second outbreak or anything. And it's hard not knowing.
Yeah. Nobody's got that crystal ball, and I think that is nobody, right? I mean, I don't think that matters whether you're a scientist, you know, a member of the government, or us. I don't think nobody has a crystal ball right now as to what happens. But I do think I think the ultimate thing is that people need to have a choice, right? So you've said there, one man has made an evaluation and he's made a decision based on his own personal circumstances. And equally, you know, there'll be people that feel completely differently. And I think it is about everybody understanding that everybody will have their own view and feeling about what they feel comfortable doing and not doing. But I think if, you know, for event spaces, if there's transparency around how we are going to help you feel safe, be safe, from a social distancing point of view, the cleaning protocols that have been put in place, the safety of your team, will help people to feel more comfortable. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the difficult thing for us is because we've had to shift the bread and butter, and the main part of the business is the brewery. That's my baby. That's what keeps the business going, is the brewery. And so we've shifted a lot of our business to business sales to direct to the consumer, and doing a weekly delivery to retail customers within 15 miles. So we've got a really great local supporting that have really got behind that, and people who are shopping local, which is great. without knowing when the business side of it's going to take off again. We've obviously got limited staff because the business isn't there to kind of support and keep them on. So when it comes to then having bigger events and finding people to help with the planning, the running of it, the actual on the day hosting it, we're trying to look at, well, how do we do that? Who can we work with? How can we really simplify our business model so that there is still a business there at the end of the day? And like I said, the brewery is, we're still brewing, we're still bottling, we're still selling, and we're still doing the events. It's then how do we address that going forward so that we're working in the most efficient way and the best way, like you mentioned, for the safeguarding of everyone, and with those policies in place so that you're not just overstretched and things get missed, that it's working in the best possible way.
Yeah. I mean, I know generally that a lot of hospitality businesses seem to be viewing this as an opportunity to reboot, reimagine, like it's a brand new opening. And I guess, you know, looking at every aspect of business, and, you know, maybe that's a positive thing. We all learn with hindsight, right? And you've been running your business now for several years and get the opportunity to re-look back and think, well, I would have done that differently back then if I'd known then what I know now. So
the really difficult thing is, though, that's rubbish for everyone, is that how one thing can completely flip every industry basically worldwide on its head in no time at all. I mean, just look at, like, watching the news yesterday about airline businesses that are good businesses and through no fault of their own can't operate. And it's not because the owners have done anything wrong. It's not because the business wasn't a good business. It's not because there wasn't a need for it. It's just because of the pandemic and the impact that's had. And it's just rubbish for business owners and people employed in the business and on furlough. And it's just really difficult. The thing that I really struggle with is understanding or thinking about the long-term bigger picture, like what impact it's going to have and how this business can adapt to meet that, which I find pretty boggling, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's where having conversations with others that are in the same situation hopefully helps a little bit. Although acknowledging what we said earlier, which is nobody right now has a crystal ball. And, you know, I guess from a business point of view, everybody's in the same situation, and we've got to look to the future, knowing what we know and finding innovative ways to continue, innovative but safe ways to continue with business, because people will want to reconnect and be with family and friends and colleagues in an event environment, for sure.
Yeah, if they did have a crystal ball, they'd be the ones making a lot of money right now.
Indeed, they would. You're right. Yes, they would be the most. That would be the most valuable person in the world and the most valuable crystal ball. But yeah.
But the one thing I have seen that's been really, really positive is that how much the local community have got behind local businesses, and how I think some people's mindsets have shifted towards going to a big supermarket can make you quite anxious, with the risk of some people not taking into consideration social distancing and different people caring on different levels about the risk involved and the extremity of it. But thinking, you know what, I do want to go down to Frank at my local farm shop because he's buying his lamb from Dave down the road and all the rest of it. And
yeah.
And that's been really good. And I know there's been a lot of people who've supported us, and even people from certain villages speaking to people within the village and putting in one big order and saying, deliver to me, and I'll deliver to 7 other people in the village, and little initiatives like that. And from speaking to customers, some people who have been on furlough, one lady and Brian and Alison, they're fantastic, great customers of ours, but he's got a 3D printer and he's been printing in his own time and at his own cost things for PPE for the visors, and he's been getting up in the middle of the night, and that's basically been running 24/7. She's been getting involved with setting up a group to make scrubs and scrub bags, and they've done a huge amount. And just it's amazing how much, when the community get together, what an impact it can have. And it doesn't take a lot from each person to have a huge impact on a local shop or a local business. And if everyone does that, it'll go a hell of a long way.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I think we all hope will continue when we do come out the other side of this, and that people have learned new ways of doing things and appreciation for small local businesses, and that they continue to support them in the future. I do think personally that will be something that we see come out of this, which is amazing. Amazing. So,
I mean, 3 of the most important things to me: beer, I've got the beer sorted; food, I've got a local farm shop for the meat and a local veg box; and coffee, and I've been using Method coffee roasters and James Gourmet coffee for that, and I'm pretty sorted with that.
Well, that's great, Paul. It's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.